So what they did was I think it was about 3-4 months ago, they swept $300,000 out of that fund. Now, what they're claiming is that, well, that was interest, and we can sweep the interest. Now, what's it tell you if they swept 300 out of interest? That means that the capital sum in that account isn't being spent because they're trying to gain interest so they can sweep it and use it for, guess what? The illegal aliens that they can't afford anymore.
Welcome to Conservative Talk Chicago. Conservative Talk Chicago is a podcast created to reach the men and women who feel distrustful of mainstream media and the messaging promoted by a liberal Illinois government. We started Conservative Talk Chicago because we felt that fair, impartial, and pragmatic news was not being disseminated by most mainstream media, and if it was with a strong liberal bias. Most of us watching or listening to this podcast live in Illinois and have friends and loved ones who do as well. As residents, we are concerned about the future of our state. We perceive that our liberal government continues to push the populace down a rabbit hole that is increasingly difficult to crawl back out of. What do I mean by a rabbit hole? Well, people and businesses are leaving the state in record numbers. They are fleeing from budgetary mismanagement, including misused funds, increased debt and taxation, lack of government transparency, and legislature and laws that many find onerous. Laws like the Safety Act, passed in the middle of the night by a liberal state government without true representation by the conservative population of Illinois. For the residents who remain, laws like this do not instill confidence in our government, especially since, after the fact, we have seen much criticism and concern regarding this recent legislature. And what about sex education? Do parents really support the promoting of LGBTQ sex education who are grade school youth? Pritzker wanting to support his trans siblings seems like a conflict of interest at the expense of our children. Graphically showing how same-sex children can engage in sex certainly reeks of grooming and not preventing unwanted teen pregnancies. Governor Pritzker and his liberal government have ever been indicating that our population is not significantly shrinking by the rush of residents vacating Illinois. But this is a blatant lie of omission. Pritzker is counting on the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants he and Brandon Johnson have welcomed into our state at our expense to offset the mass exodus of residents and businesses in order to game the census. This is for political gain and at the expense of the remaining Illinois residents. According to the latest state budget, passed last July, our current liberal government keeps increasing spending as if we're printing money. And how can Illinois continue to fiscally function with an ever-increasing budget deficit? We all know of friends, relatives, neighbors, and businesses who have fled Illinois. They have taken their tax revenue with them. Who will make up the difference? The illegal immigrants that the sanctuary state of Illinois has welcomed? They are neither citizens nor here legally and are at the expense to the state and not a source of revenue, especially when we have supported these illegal immigrants with food, lodging, transportation, health care, etc., to the tune of over $2 billion, while ignoring our own poor, impoverished, and homeless. Do we think these illegals are going to make up the tax revenue to offset this growing deficit? Only a fool would think that. Illinois will either fall further into debt or bear the burden of ever-increasing taxation, borne on the backs of the remaining residents and business. And I'm betting will be both. This is the rabbit hole that I referred to. It's time for a change. That is why I've asked Sheriff James Mendrick, gubernatorial candidate for governor of Illinois, to join us today.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me on today.
Fantastic, Jim. Thank you for taking the time. I know your schedule is very busy. I really appreciate it.
It's a big state. You can drive 6.5 hours in Illinois and still be in Illinois. So yes, I think we've achieved 62 counties out of 102 we've been to. And I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, at least Chicago, where our largest voting base is only 40 minutes from my house. So we probably go out to Chicago about 3-4 times a week.
Yeah, we're glad to know your schedule.
Yeah, it's quite hectic.
I like to think of all the fast food you've eaten too. That's another problem, right?
Yeah, I've kind of, I fast, I jog every day. It's been a little disruptive to that, but I'm not doing too bad. I've been not doing too much of the fast food.
Okay, well, thank God for that. I know for me, I'd put on 10 pounds in a week if I did that, so good for you. Hey, Jim, I got a lot of questions for you today. I know the people that are going to be watching our program and paying attention to what's going on at the gubernatorial races are wondering who the heck Sheriff James Mendrick is. Okay, everyone in DuPage knows who you are, and plenty of people in Cook know who you are, but the rest of the area, they're going, I've heard of this guy. What's he about? So I know that you've got a lot of things on your plate, the things you've done for the state, for the county especially, as sheriff, and you put the citizens first and their safety first. Could you spend a little time, a few minutes, and basically, expound on, what you've done for the state, particularly in terms of putting public safety first?
Sure. What I've done as sheriff of DuPage County can really be mimicked. If I was governor of Illinois, many of the successes that I've had at the sheriff's office could be replicated. So I call it cookie cutterable into all the other counties. There's 102 counties in the state of Illinois. There's almost 13 million people. And, mind you, almost 4 million people in Illinois are previously incarcerated too. So, I mean, that's almost a third.
Many?
Yeah, it's almost a third of our population have been in jail at one time or another. So being mindful of how we incarcerate and how we manage criminality throughout the entire state is a very big issue. Out in DuPage, we've really, I think, done some very innovative methodologies to criminality. 80% of the people come in are on substance, so we've had to really learn about detoxification. And, this is part of it, too. When you're an emergency manager, or if you're in charge of a big governmental entity like the sheriff's office, what people don't realize is typically your law enforcement entity is going to be the largest portion of that government's budget. Like DuPage County, it's public safety, us, that is the biggest portion of the budget. So how we manage our business is going to determine, the financial health of the county, of the state, of whoever's governing it is going to have control of how well citizens are going to flourish, because public safety is very expensive. So we learned to get everyone to work together. Take mental health and detoxification. You have people like Amita Health, you have like NAMI, you have the health department, you have all these different entities that typically compete within a space. But what I do, since I have the only correctional facility within DuPage County, the second biggest, I give people access. If they're willing to work together, combine efforts for the greater good to actually help people, I give them access to an area that they typically don't have access to. So I did that with mental health, with detoxing. Then I brought in 200 counselors to teach 80 programs a week. And we did that by reverse engineering. When you have control of something and you have control over people's lives, you have to take that very seriously. I have 600 inmates, and I am responsible for their well-being. So we interview them to find out what caused their criminality. We don't rely on a college study to tell us how to do, correctional facilities within DuPage County. We're taking real data and we're accessing that and taking that to learn how to treat the problem. So all those classes are all these different counselors. And then we have job training. It's like I said, I offer access. So I gave College of DuPage access to my jail to build their own college within our correctional facility. Then we added in gang tattoo removal. We do Suits for Success and give you suits. But by using all these different groups in cohesion and cooperation within a governmental institution, we were able to bring our recidivism rates down from 75 to 15%, our heroin rates down from 90 to 20% by including everybody. We call it takes a village. Everything that we have within our correctional facility, all these job training programs, they're all paid for by other entities that believe in the mission of what we're doing. I took that same concept with patrol. After COVID, when they tried to take qualified immunity away from the police, and then they started, forcing them to register on mandatory vaccination lists, and then they started firing cops. And I started doing laterals and hiring these cops, but it really demoralized the law enforcement profession. And as you demoralize the police, it emboldens criminals. And what we were really realizing is that we didn't even have the manpower to have proactive teams, like gang units and stuff like that. So we found us to just be call handlers. So how do we solve that problem? Well, there's 40 police agencies within DuPage County. Let's work together. Let's build something new. We call it MERIT, the Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigative Team. Fancy name. Really what that means, though, is that we took all of our resources of policing. We combined them into one massive unit that trains together. We bulk purchase together to make everything cheaper. When I go to my county board to ask for emergency management equipment, I'm going with the strength of 40 other police chiefs because we all work together. We respond together. It's quicker response time. You get 3 times more cops, twice as fast without increasing your manpower. So what we've done, they've always talked about consolidating law enforcement. And consolidating law enforcement, when a politician says it, usually means we're about to be defunded. But we did it not with an axe, but with a scalpel. And we did it in just combined services. Buy things together, make things cheaper. make us work together, train together. Then our methodologies are the same. We respond together. We're all coming from concentric circles. It's basically wherever an incident occurs, you're getting everybody on and off duty from those locations. So it's proximity based. That has worked and created a more efficient government that makes our entire public safer. We've done that within the correctional environment. We've also done that within the patrol environment. At the same time, we've learned to leverage technology. We have a crime laboratory, but then we added a digital forensics laboratory, understanding that right now, technology is jumping over legislation. We can't keep up with the technology and how fast it's increasing. So we're making changes in acquisition of hard drives and cloning technology because we can't mess with the original because that would change it for legal investigations. So we've had to keep up with the times, change a lot of what we're doing, but we have evolved into a very technological, highly trained. And I throw this one out there just because it's such a rare thing to be able to say. I've been elected now for 7 years. I haven't had a use of force complaint against one of my road deputies by one citizen since I've been elected. And I don't know too many other agencies could say that. But we're ahead of the game. We're chess players, not checker players. We are the CIT, crisis intervention and de-escalation, train the trainers. I train the autism part myself when we incepted these classes. I have VR helmets that you can put them on and know what it feels like to be schizophrenic, what it feels like to be autistic, giving people empathy. So when they go out and they're doing that job every day, they have the best equipment, they're highly trained, they're confident, they're treated well, and that's why we have such good policing in DuPage County.
I remember putting on those drunk classes once, and it's an interesting experience, I'll tell you.
We have those too.
Everything you've done so far is at county level. Can that translate to state? Can you do the same things?
What I do can be replicated across the state. It could be replicated across governmental institutions. A lot of what I do, I call myself the switchboard operator, right? I can take this person, match them up with that person. This one will work with that one. This one will work with that one. And that's what government's really about. It's about taking the right people and making them work together. And, another thing that needs to be done, I believe in the Illinois level that I've seen, because I do look at the Illinois budget the same way that I do as my own budget. And that's in auditor mode, I guess. It's where you're looking at what's wrong? Is there any wrongdoing being done? I think what we need to look at is the efficiencies in our Illinois budget. A job code, when it's created, is supposed to match your skills, knowledge, abilities, training, and what is required. You have a certain pay level by a job code that marries to the person. I haven't seen a job task analysis, or at least not one that they told us about or ever announced in the state of Illinois, but you have to start somewhere and you have to start from the bottom. And you have to tear down a budget and then erect it new to find out what's wrong with it. And the first thing would be is a comprehensive job task analysis to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions. We don't have buddy contracts. We don't have people in positions that don't have the required training according to their job code. There's a mass liability in that. You wouldn't want an air traffic controller that's not having the right job qualification, would you? We saw what happened with that. And that was almost getting people killed. And that's why that exists, why there's a job code in Illinois that in DuPage it's called the Hay Study, right? You take a Hay Study code, it says to be a police officer, I need this education, I need this training, and then it gives me this pay. And I don't know if they've gotten anywhere near doing that anymore in Illinois. It seems to me like it's still run like in the 1900s.
Al Capone era, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. It hasn't really changed since then. And I think they've gotten so used to doing whatever they want that they just do it. Take your motor vehicle fuel tax. Okay, that had a 2016 constitutional amendment that said that it is solely to be used for road repair and maintenance, right? And then they always put in that second caveat. This was written basically so you can't sweep money out of this. So what they did was about 3-4 months ago, they swept $300,000 out of that fund. Now, what they're claiming is that, that was interest, and we can sweep the interest. Now, what's it tell you if they swept $300 out of interest? That means that the capital sum in that account isn't being spent because they're trying to gain interest so they can sweep it and use it for, guess what? The illegal aliens that they can't afford anymore. Again, I'm going to go back to populace, right? The most expensive thing you can pay for is people. So if I bring in a secondary population, like you were saying in your intro, they brought in a whole secondary population. Now they expect us to afford this. So you touched on socialism. I want to take you down that path that you talked right there. about, because I think that's very salient topic to tell people why this is happening with the sanctuary state. So with the sanctuary state, if JB Pritzker said a few months ago that if you want to leave Illinois, just leave. And I was puzzled. Why would a governor say just leave? Well, if me and you are like a pain in the butt and we're not compliant with what they want to do with government, it behooves them to get rid of us. So if Jack and Jim leave, that's great for JB Pritzker. I got rid of 2 people who would have opposed what I'm trying to do with government. Now I'll just summon in more people from the rest of the world, come through me. They have to all come through me, and I protect my people. JB Pritzker identifies and calls the illegal immigrant population his people. Well, I look at the citizens as my people, right? That's my people, as the citizens. His people are the illegal immigrants, because now Jack and Jim leave the state and 2 illegal immigrants replace us. They're going to be government dependent. They're going to be given free room and board, food. They are going to be slaves of the government. Socialism, anyone? Now, if they keep doing this, the population that's non-compliant leaves, and the population that is compliant and dependent moves in and takes our place. And if you do that enough, you'll wash out all the ones that give you trouble, and you bring in all the ones that don't. And mind you, they're all counted in the census. So illegal immigrants are part of the census tally, which now in turn keeps your congressional seats. So this is a very blatant move towards socialism.
If we talk about sanctuary state and open borders, okay, what has that done to our budget? Have we lost money because of that policy we've had?
So yes, we have lost a lot of money. Let me tell you how much money we've lost, and then I'm going to explain what the sanctuary state really means and why this is all being done. So you talk money. I think we're still $1.6 billion in debt for health care from last year on illegal immigration. I know they spent $740 million this year for housing, food. I know that, and this puzzles me. They set their budget July 1st, right? State budget, July 1st. And then next month, without any oversight, here comes the executive orders, death by House bill. Now we're going to pay another $2 billion for college. So not only are you going to pay for your kids' college and their college debts and bills, now you're going to pay for illegal immigrants' college, because you know what? 70% of our kids, when they leave this state to go to college, they never return to Illinois. So the colleges are dying as well because of all this overregulation, over taxes, crime. All these things drive that population out. But when that's part of the plan, that's going to continue.
And those people, when they stay, the illegal immigrants, they vote, and they vote for the policies in place and the people that gave them money, right?
And to get back to money, so not only are we spending all this money on supporting a secondary population, but because we're violating federal laws, we've lost federal funding too. That's going to be almost $2 billion in money that we won't get from the federal government because we're violating the law. And let me tell you what the sanctuary state means, because all these raids that Pritzker is using to chase the president around, that's really what this is. This is a governor who wants to be president, and he wants to chase our current president around to have conflicts with him so he can have a pulpit. And that's why he created all this hoopla over the sanctuary state. Now, if we did not have a sanctuary state, say we called it off tomorrow and there's no more sanctuary state, let's look at what that looks like now. Okay, now I get somebody who's here illegally and they commit a crime, because even without the sanctuary state, we've never kept anyone in an Illinois jail just for immigration, right? So that doesn't happen, never did, never will. Let's go back to reality. We eliminate sanctuary state today. Tomorrow, I get somebody in who is here illegally, and let's say they did a domestic battery. We would call ICE. ICE would get a consulate on the phone. They would talk to the person. They would look and see if they were running from a crime in their previous location where they live, and then they would then review with the magistrate, fancy word for federal immigration judge, and they would come and look at the case to see if what they were running from or if their new case they had here was enough for deportation. And if they did, they would say, okay, ICE is going to come pick them up. Now, mind you, that's called an ICE hold. So when we say, hey, ICE, we have somebody and we're holding them for you, if they don't pick them up within 3 days, they've got to pay. And then it's called an ICE hold, and they have to pay the whole boat for the stay of the person within my correctional facility. So they're always were really good about getting people within about a week or so. So now you realize in that format, when you allow them access to our correctional facilities, which the sanctuary state is the mechanism that says they can't come into the correctional facilities. Just be clear so we understand this. Now, when we say you can't have access, now that door's shut. They have to go out into the public. They have to go to wherever their targets reside or occupy, whether it's work, whether it's a school, whether it's a housing area. And then they have to pursue them, and then and then that's when the politicians get their chance to incite riots, get people attacked, shoot at them, kill them, like they did the National Guard. These politicians are using these as opportunities to create conflict between our public and our law enforcement. And again, now mind you, there's out of 102 counties in Illinois, there's 92 correctional facilities, right? So if we're calling ICE, all 92 jails are saying, hey, we have a criminal who's being detained, ICE come get him. And this is, a force multiplier of 92. And then you have, like I said, the state that, you could basically drive in the state for 7 hours and be in the same state. So there's a lot of geography there. Their business model, and let's go back to just business. I don't care if ICE is considered feds or law enforcement. They have a business, a government model and structure of headcount and manpower and affordability of what they can do and how much they can do. And with their current headcount and their structure right now, if we were to change this and start calling them, they would go from being a proactive unit that's looking for people in society, and they go and be transformed overnight into a reactive transport unit, because they would have to go to all of these different jails to do all of these pickups every single week. That would occupy all their time, would end the ICE raids, but it would also end JB's little tirades and Brandon Johnson's tirades, because they live on this for political stuff, right? They're just political neophytes that are taking a very horrible stance on a very bad policy, and they're willing to compromise yours and my safety. Bring in all of these people that we don't know, that haven't been screened. Think about all the masks they had us wearing for contagion and all that. Now it's okay to take people who've never been medically screened and put in schools with our kids. That's all of a sudden not a problem. So who's lying? Them then or them now? One of them is a lie. So we're watching them sacrifice public safety for bad policies. The sanctuary state is created as a pulpit for JB Pritzker to have his time with Donald Trump and to try to berate him, when if he would say, give them access to the jails tomorrow, all these raids would be over. They would be picking up only the criminal element. Isn't that what everybody says? They want the rapist and the murderers gone. Well, that's how to do it. You allow ICE access to your correctional facilities.
Jim, you cover so much stuff here, which means when it comes to things like saving money, whether it's through pension reform or through bulk purchasing, consolidating counties, municipalities together under, say, a master purchasing program, so you can get bulk discounts. You can save a lot of money, but somebody's got to do this. Okay, it takes a lot of work. So you're one man. You're going to have a team of people around you doing all this stuff. Okay, and you're going to have to be the guy who keeps his eye on a prize on the big picture. So, do you see anything that's would interfere with you once you took office from doing that?
No, again, I've been running an $80 million budget for 12 years, and I'm a Republican sheriff, and now what I would say is pretty blue county. It's a shame. It's got to admit it. They call us DuPage now. Did you know that?
I kind of heard that. Yeah. It's disheartening, but I heard
I
that.
know. So I've been in that environment where my Democrat county board members may not particularly like a Republican law enforcement officer, but to their credit, they've never interfered with my budget. We ask for the right things for the right reasons. We don't play games. We don't try to dupe them. Again, that zero balance budget, if a county board member has any issue or question about what we're buying, it's so transparent. And that's what we've done at DuPage. And that's why I don't think I'd have a problem doing it statewide, is because I can work in a nonpartisan atmosphere, and you keep it to dollars and cents, rationale. And I'll tell you what I've noticed a lot of times, people simply won't do the wrong thing out in public if you call them out and put light on it. I would be suspicious of anything secret. But when you come out and say, at first my county board didn't want to give us tasers, right? So we had failed a couple times at a couple board meetings trying to obtain tasers. And, sometimes you just have to present it the right way. On the last vote, when I think we had lost the vote 18-2, I simply said, I just want you to know you're voting today, basically saying that we have no other choice but to shoot a person with a bullet without a taser. And then all of a sudden it all switched the other way and I got my tasers, because you have to be able to explain it from a position of, if something bad happens, now you're on record, right? Your voters know that, now if we have, and they also thought if there's a police shooting, he's going to blame us. Well, yes, you're right. That's why I'm asking for something non-lethal. I'm just putting you in a position of responsibility if something goes bad.
They become the protector too now.
Right. And you know what? That was fine. It all worked out. Guess what? We haven't had any shootings. Knock on every kind of wood I can. That's fake wood, but I'm just saying that, when you ask the right way with fairness, research, you're asking for the right thing for the right reason, and citizen buy-in. If you can get citizen buy-in before you ask, the citizens do the work for you. I'm telling you, and that's a difference between a politician and an elected official. I am not a politician. A politician does things because it's for fame, wealth, jobs, money, all the stuff that's going to be investigated. An elected official is a public servant. You're coming in to do work, knowing that you're coming into liability, stress, pressure, a system that's already fairly broken.
A lot of complaints.
We're on the bottom of every good list and the top of every bad list.
Mm-hmm.
So the bar is set very low in that respect. But I think when you're in an environment like that, you work with who's there and you do things in a smart way. And I'll be honest with you, with all the stuff that we've done, I don't think I'd get a lot of resistance going statewide with rehabilitation efforts. That's polled equally high from Democrats to Republicans. I think that would be an initiative that would bring a lot of people together and get us starting working together on something that we could all agree on. I think from there's going to be many things. I think, let's put it this way. If somebody is there and say I'm going to throw out a hypothetical, ghost payrolling. They're getting $150,000, $200,000 a year and they're coming to work twice a week. If I call that out, who's going to tell me that I can't? Who's going to say, no, I think we should allow this person to get $150,000 a year and he's going to come to work twice a week? How do you defend that? So, but if you turn a blind eye to it, never audit it, you'll never know.
Good point. Good point.
I mean, that's the whole problem is we haven't had anybody who says, you know what? I want to be governor because I want to do the right thing. No, they're walking in. I want to be governor because I want to be the boss. I want to be in charge. I want to control jobs. I want to be
president.
Yeah, or I want to, leapfrog and be president. That's been the wrong mentality over and over and over that we've gotten. And when you go into a job thinking of, all the power and prestige I'm going to have, wait a minute, where's the hard work? Where's the audit? Where's, that red line that's going to prove that, I didn't do any of this damage. This was done before I was here, and here's what I've accomplished after that red line. That's how an elected official should be. They should be somebody who's going to come in and make sure that any of the problems that exist are immediately addressed as fast as possible so you don't perpetuate them and then become responsible for what your predecessor did.
So, Jim, you've given us so much to talk about, so much to think about just now. And we'll talk amongst ourselves. We'll bandy some of the stuff you said back and forth, and it's going to create a lot of interest because everything you said makes so much sense. Okay, and it brings us to a point where we have to start questioning, how we're running our state. Okay, and up to now, most of us just assumed it was being run properly. There's so much stuff to rethink now, and you're basically being a catalyst for all the additional thoughts. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to explain that to us. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we terminate this discussion?
Well, I just want to emphasize again that I'm not a politician. I'm an elected official. I come from the public safety realm, but I also come from a background of all budget, really. And I can be trusted. I will always do the right thing. We anecdotally have a saying that I'd be the first governor to come out of a jail instead of going into one. And that will make crime illegal again, because right now we do have a public safety problem. It's starting in Chicago. That's the hot spot, but it has bled into DuPage, the collar counties. As I travel throughout the state, I'm seeing pockets that have the exact same problems in low rural areas that have the same problems as the city of Chicago, and that's just not fair to our citizens. We need to think of our citizens first. As JB Pritzker calls illegals, his people. Those are his people. But you, the citizens of the state of Illinois, are my people, and I will always do right by you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you taking the time to spend with us, explain everything to us. Before I go, I'd like to mention that Sheriff Mendrick is running for governor of the state of Illinois. Anybody that wants to volunteer or wants to help his campaign, make a donation. So if you want to help the candidacy of Jim Mendrick, Sheriff Mendrick, please go to the website and make yourself known. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to what you had to say today.
Jack, thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Thank you.